Hi, folks. Good afternoon again, and welcome to our second session on the Who Moved My Cheese book club for our book club in 2020. As we're nearing to the end of this year, it's always a time when we reflect upon the past few months or the past 12 months, and we look at our life, we look at where we are at, and we try to see where we can make adjustments for a brighter 2021. Then my name is Jasty Ambrose. I am the chief consultant at Ambrose and Associates, and we're pleased to share this Lunch and Learn series with you, totally free. The only cost is your time, and we do respect your time. These sessions are meant to run for 4 weeks for a maximum of 30 minutes. Each session begins at 12:15 p.m. and we aim to end on or before 12:45 p.m. so that you have enough time to gather your lunch if you're on work or at home, have a nice comfortable area to relax and to join with us as we explore Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. So I'm going to get straight into the content today. Okay, so we're really looking at doing a recap of last week's session, and then we're going to look at this week's session in terms of what we want to do for Who Moved My Cheese. Just give me 2 seconds. Let me get my window up. And I will have it up shortly for you. Right. See, now it goes. Technology. Excellent. So last week, we looked at Who Moved My Cheese, and our first session was focused on understanding our reality. As I mentioned before, we at Ambrose and Associates, our aim is to serve you. We believe in leadership through service, and we do this through a number of our offerings in terms of personal coaching, personal development courses, corporate training and coaching, public speaking training, IT project consultancy, and very soon we'll be merging our personality and behavioral assessments so that we can help you to identify the best training methods for your staff. So our first session last week, so you can check back on Facebook or YouTube for that video, we looked at the summary of the book, Who Moved My Cheese. It's a very short book. The book is not that big, as you can see. It's not a very big book, even though I may have a multitude of markers. And I explained last week that something I picked up from my mentor and friend, John Maxwell, when you read something, it usually leaves a mark on you. And I read it once, I read it twice, 3 times. And every time I read, I use my markers to highlight areas or key points that can be applied in my life. So I encourage you to also pick up on that habit, to leave some marks in your book. You can even highlight, as I did. You can see the highlights there, so that you can look back and you can pull out key points for the future. We looked at the main characters in the book. So there are 4 main characters, 2 mice and 2 little people. So the 2 mice are Sniff and Scurry, and the 2 little people are Hem and Haw. And these characters, they lived and they would search a maze for cheese. Now, of course, cheese is an analogy for whatever you are searching for in your life. So whether it's for a new job, a nice family, a nice house, whatever cheese is to you is what you are searching for. And a maze represents your life. We are all in this life searching for our cheese. And we looked at the importance of regularly checking on our cheese. Yes, cheese, as we saw in session 1, did not remain where it was. So initially, the characters found this large store of cheese at cheese station C. However, the cheese eventually ran out. And we saw coming to the end of the first session, when the cheese ran out, that there were different reactions from the different characters. The mice had a different reaction from the little people. So, just some quick thoughts about cheese. Cheese. Having your cheese can make you happy. Having your cheese can make you happy. All right. We also looked at the more important cheese is to you is the more you would want to hold on to it. So the more important that thing is in your life that you're searching for is, the more you would want to hold on to it. And we also looked at finally, what would you do if you weren't afraid? So this dealt with when your cheese is taken away, when that dream job ceases to exist, sometimes when relationships end, when things change in our life, as 2020 has shown us that things can change in an instant. Most of us did not anticipate this pandemic. However, it has changed the way we live our lives. And what would we do if we weren't afraid, given the current situation? So, moving on now, let's go into our key focus for today's session, which is confronting change. So, at our last reading, we saw where the mice and the little people, they came to Cheese Station C. And it says, one morning they arrived at Cheese Station C and discovered there was no cheese. The mice were not surprised. They were prepared for the inevitable and knew instinctively what to do. The mice did not overanalyze things. Later that same day, however, Hem and Haw arrived at Cheese Station C. They had not been paying attention to the small changes that had been taking place each day, so they took it for granted their cheese would be there. They were unprepared for what they found. When they did arrive, they exclaimed, "Who moved my cheese?" See, cheese, as I mentioned before, is whatever we are searching for in life. For some of us, cheese may be that dream job, it may be that dream car, that dream home, that dream family, that dream relationship. Whatever it is, we are all searching for our cheese or different types of cheese. But the thing is, the cheese is always moving, as the mice and little people realize. The mice and little people, they had an abundant supply of cheese at Cheese Station C. However, one day it was gone. The mice, they were simple creatures. They did not have complex brains, just as we know regular mice to do, and they were driven by their instincts. The book says they were not surprised when they came to Cheese Station C and did not find any cheese. Why? Because every day, they would follow the same instinctive routine. They would rush to Cheese Station C, they would tie their shoes about their necks, they would sniff around Cheese Station C, they'd examine the cheese, and then they would eat cheese. So every day they practice something that I want to encourage you to do as someone who is very keen about their personal growth and development. Every day, I want you to develop the right routines, the right habits for your success. And we can model it after the mice. They got up early, meaning that they set enough time to be prepared. The mice understood the importance of time and managing oneself to make use of their time. So they got up early, they did what they needed to do, which was to get to Cheese Station C. So just as the mice, we all need to set our schedules in order, set our priorities in place, follow those routines. But key to that is to follow what the mice did. Even though they had the same routine, they kept looking at the environment. They kept looking at how things could change. So they continually inspected Cheese Station C. They looked at the cheese to see if there were any changes. And when change did occur, what did they do? They put back on their shoes and they went back into the maze without over analyzing things, without quarreling, without trying to fight against things that were out of their control. The mice understood that they had to remain focused on finding cheese. And that is a very important lesson to us. Now contrast it with the little people. The little people, they, just like us, have complex brains. They are driven by logic and emotions. However, when they were confronted with change, when 2020 came, when most of us found out about this coronavirus and all these changes, the social distancing, the quarantine, the economic lockdown, what did we do? Some of us were surprised, some were disappointed, some of us were even angry. In fact, some of us are still living in denial. Some people still deny that the virus exists. They still deny the need for us to follow all the health and safety protocols. And some of us, when we are confronted with change, we try to return to the same or the past place that we were in or past experience, expecting something different. We all, or most of us may have heard the quote, no, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Now, the insanity is not in the doing, the insanity is in the expectation. In that expectation that if we continue doing the same thing, we'll get different results. That is where the insanity occurs. And sometimes change can cause us to temporarily go insane. Yes, I said it. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but that moment when we are confronted with an unexpected change, when we did not use the correct routines, when we did not employ good habits in our lives so that we were continually assessing our environment, just as the mice did, then when we are faced with an unexpected change, we too can deny it. We can say this change is not real, even though the facts are there, even though all the signs point to a change environment, a change perspective, to that job no longer being there, that relationship not existing anymore, that car not being accessible again. When we are faced with the facts, sometimes we tend to deny it, just as the little people did. However, little people, they didn't just deny the change, it goes on further to say that for a few days after recognizing that the cheese was gone from Cheese Station C, the little people continued to return to Cheese Station C, expecting somehow that on the second day, on the third day, on the fourth day, that cheese would magically reappear. They even brought tools to attempt to dig for cheese, to attempt to find for cheese, until they recognized that, wait, all of this activity that we're doing to return to the previous situation that doesn't exist does not equal to productivity. And that's a key point. Where we try to return things to the way they were, we tend to get busy doing a lot of things. We lost our jobs, so we're trying to get back that old job. We lost a relationship, we're trying to get back that relationship. As I said, these things could be your cheese, could be my cheese. It depends on what you're going after. We try to get back that past experience the way it was, and we do a lot of things. There's a lot of activity, but are we being productive? Are we using the old methods in a new environment? And this is where we need to analyze ourselves, where we need to step back from the picture and really look at it and say, are we really being productive with all of our activity? So we have four characters, Sniff and Scurry, the mice, and when they confronted change, or when they were confronted with change, what did they do? They leapt into action. They did not overanalyze things, but they leapt into action and they began to move with the change. Sniff, as his name implies, His radar was always on. He was able to sniff out change early, and some of us are just like that. We are able to sniff out changes early. A lot of the techie persons who would have been following the tech news and using tools such as Zoom before 2020 had the advantage compared to those who may have never heard of Zoom or even video conferencing before 2020 brought changes. And Sniff represents some of those persons where they're able to see changes and they're able to move on those changes early. Their radar is always on. Then we have some persons maybe like scurry. They scurry into action. They're able to start or react to change quickly. So, using the same example of video conferencing tools such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, some of us may not have even heard about these tools before 2020. However, when the change did occur, when we were confronted with the social distancing, with the need to work from home, the need to work remotely, the need to communicate remotely, some of us scurried into action. We quickly went out there, we bought books, we read articles, we spoke to persons, we even hired persons to teach us how to use these tools. And this is a great response to change. Some of us, however, are like the little people. We have hem and we have haw. Some of us, we hem at change. We are reluctant to change. We do not want to leave the old ways behind. And unfortunately, those who respond to change or react to change as hem will eventually be left behind because they do not want to adapt to the change environment. And my encouragement to you, change is one of the constants in life. We have no control over most of the changes that occur. However, we do have control over our response to change. And my encouragement is to not be like him, but in fact, to be like Haw. Haw, now initially, Hem and Haw, they did not respond well to change. They spent days in denial, they spent days wondering about not understanding what happened because they were not paying attention to the environment as the mice were. However, Haw came to accept change. Using the example of, again, video conferencing tools, some persons, they did not like the idea of chatting with their friends and family over Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or even any of the other tools out there. They preferred, just as most of us do, the face to face communication, the direct communication, to be there in the same physical space with that person. And initially, they may have been reluctant to change, reluctant to use these tools. But just like Hall, they accepted the change as time went on. They began to adapt without hemming and hawing too much. They began to adapt without the hemming and hawing too much. They recognized that the world has changed, that we also must change and adapt with the changing environment. And they accepted that these tools are here to stay. These tools are vital to us continuing our lives. And these tools do not take away from the main aim. Our aim is to communicate, and we can communicate in person, we can communicate remotely. And all these tools do is enhance the way we communicate given our circumstances. So, just like our characters in the story, Ham and Haw and Sniff and Scurry, let us all remember that we can have different responses to change. We can be like Sniff, who is always alert, looking at the environment, is able to sniff out change. We can be like Scurry. We may not be able to sniff out change beforehand or as quickly. but we are able to change or react quickly to changes that occur. We can be like Hem, where we are reluctant to change and we will be left behind. Or we can be like Haw, where even though we may be initially reluctant to change, we learn to adapt without too much fuss. So that brings us to the conclusion of this session. Again, I'm looking forward to any comments, any feedback. Feel free to share your thoughts on the video now or even later to share it with your friends and family members. And remember that we have 2 more sessions. Our next session, again, next Wednesday, God's Fair Life on the 23rd. That's 2 days before Christmas, 23rd of December 2020. We'll be looking at sniff and scurry's persistence. We'll be looking at what we can learn from Haw's doubts, and we'll see how to persevere during times of adversity and uncertainty. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. Change is difficult. Change is very difficult. It's going to take some energy out of you. And our next session, we're going to look at how we can persevere through the change process. So just as we saw Sniff and Scurry, they adapted quickly to change. They sprang into action and they continued their search for cheese. Hem and Haw, however, had a more difficult transition with the change. Hem was totally against changing. Haw, however, who we'll be focusing on, is who I want us to model after. Not every change that we encounter is going to be easy for us. However, we can follow Haw's example by learning to accept the change and learning how to adapt to the change. And next session, we'll be looking at the adaptation process because you will have doubts. You will be faced with challenges as you learn to adapt to the change. And we're here to help you to learn how to work through these challenging times. So again, as I conclude, I want to thank you for joining us here, Ambrose and Associates. We offer a range of services as you may see on your screen. So feel free to contact us via our Facebook page or LinkedIn page. Check us out on Instagram, and we're open to free consultations, to even doing free lunch and learn sessions for your company, for your group, your organization. No group is too small for us to make a difference or to add value to. Thanks again, and I want to encourage you this week to reflect upon today's session, to reflect upon how you even confront change, how you look at change and adapt to change. Are you like Sniff? Are you like Scurry? Are you like Hem? Or are you like Haw? So next session, I'm looking forward to more comments, more feedback. Share the video, like our page, follow us, and look forward to sharing with you as we continue to learn and grow, as we look at our book for this month's book club, Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. Thank you very much, folks, and do have a wonderful lunch. Do have a wonderful day. Continue to keep safe, and thank you.